Hey, how y'all doing? Welcome to Dragon King 72 Media LLC. When you see Dragon King 72 Media LLC on TikTok and Facebook and Twitter, that's my brand. That's my brand name. I will always stick to that because it's about branding. Now, some of you are looking at me probably saying, damn, you look rough and crazy and hair ain't combed. Well, guess what? I can comb my hair, but I'm always be fine. Meanwhile, your hair is combed and y'all fucking ugly as fuck. Okay, now let's get into it. Everybody is talking about um, the whole drug boats in Venezuela. They're talking about how Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of Defense, not Wars, Secretary of Defense, that he ordered a what they call a double tap as far as the military, and he had some allegedly some civilians that were still hanging on to the boats or whatever, had them unalived or killed, basically, allegedly. And so there may possibly be an investigation, as it should be, because I got some of my mom. I said, uh, uh, okay, as it should be. I was eating some chilies or something. As it should be. There should be an investigation. There should be something that will explain why the rumors are so heavy. The fact that it's alleged is laughable, because 9 times out of 10 he probably did call for that double tap and killing those survivors, right? Kill them all, as the reports say. Now, then there's this debate about disobeying unlawful order if you're military personnel. That was just last week during the Thanksgiving week. Today is December 1st, 2025. And so a week after that whole debacle, and then we heard Pete Hegseth ordering this double tap, kill them all type of order. Now they're still wondering why the military, should have questioned that order. They should have questioned it. This is the time that the military should have questioned that order, and labeling what he said as a unlawful order, because I mean, he calls for somebody to die. You know what I'm saying? He made that call when it was unnecessary. They had already accomplished the mission and destroying the drug boats, down in Venezuela and the Caribbean. But here's my thing. Here's my thing. Lives were lost. I've already talked about the two Coast Guards. That was the previous videos. Go check that out. Let me know what you think. Comment, share, subscribe, whatever. But with all the drugs that they say were on these boats that they bombed and shot down, double tapped on, have y'all ever wondered what they do with the drugs? Because with the amount of drugs that they say were on these boats, all of it was coming into the United States. And of course, it was going into the urban areas. That was just a given. But y'all ever wonder, what does the government, the United States government, do with those drugs? Are they destroying them on site? Are they taking them to someplace else or some undisclosed location where they can recycle that back into the urban communities here in the United States and make a profit off of it? I say that because some of you may not remember, but some of you might. When America had went into Iraq after 9/11, because there were false reports. They probably weren't even false, just a way to go in there and steal Iraq's oil and other resources that they had. And most people will say there was a revenge, and George Bush, the son, was trying to pay homage to his father, get retribution for his father. So they went in, got Saddam Hussein and in either a bunker or a huge warehouse, but believe it was an underground bunker. There was millions of dollars in U.S. currency. I'm talking stacks, like the shit you would see in a bank heist movie, right? Early '90s, 2000s, and a lot of that money was unaccounted for. They had somewhat of an investigation, but it probably lasted about 30 days, and nobody heard anything about that since. You're not going to convince me that a lot of that money wasn't put into people's hands that shouldn't have gotten that money. You're not going to convince me that some people took it upon themselves to steal money. Because how do you not, or it goes missing millions of dollars? You know, from Saddam Hussein's bunker when he had all that American currency, a lot of that money was unaccounted for, and we haven't heard a word about it since. So it would not be a shock to me that somewhere down the line, or just in history, period, when America or other countries do this, they seize drugs and other resources, and under the cloak of we're reclaiming these items that were stolen, or we're destroying these drugs. I would not be surprised if they took some of those drugs and kept the drugs, recycling them back into the urban communities, and Donald Trump and his whole fucking grifter ass family, his whole ass grifter ugly offspring children, are going to somehow benefit from these drug busts. Because if you didn't destroy the drugs on site, where the fuck did they go? You know what I'm saying? Where the fuck did they go? Is it a specific location you take them to? Because we've never heard that. Because if not, they went to an undisclosed location where they're probably being kept, going to be recycled back into the urban community or the communities where they came from, or were going to. Most of that was coming to the United States. I would not be surprised if Donald Trump and his cronies and his family are going to try and benefit if those drugs are kept and not destroyed in some way. They're going to benefit from those drugs. They're going to benefit from it, because that's the real question that nobody seemed to be asking. What the fuck is happening with those drugs? Because you hear them telling they had a fucking fleet of boats, you know what I'm saying, that had all these fucking drugs. We saw pictures, still pictures, probably were faked or whatever, of boats being destroyed. But for the ones that weren't destroyed and decided to keep the drugs, where the fuck are the drugs? Where's the cocaine? Because the fentanyl, but it was mostly cocaine. I'm quite sure they come from Venezuela. I don't know Venezuela. I'm not into drugs. I'm not a drug dealer. I don't know anybody that does that. But I never in history have I ever heard that Venezuela was in the drug industry, specifically in fentanyl. Cocaine, crack, yeah. But fentanyl, no, I've never heard Venezuela into that. Maybe they own the trend like everybody else, but the type of drugs down in Venezuela and the drug lords and now Mexico, they dealing with pure fucking cocaine. Okay, that is the legacy drug. That is the historical drug. That is the most profitable drug in Latin American countries. The fentanyl stuff is coming from probably who the fuck knows. You know what I'm saying? Probably here in the United States. Maybe a little bit in Canada, but coming from South America, unless they've just started using that as an addition to their enterprise, most Latin American countries don't fuck with no fentanyl. It's cocaine or nothing. You know what I'm saying? Crack here and there, but it's definitely cocaine. Okay? So I would not be surprised if the United States fucking government has somehow used those drugs and gonna sell it. And Donald Trump is gonna benefit from it. I wouldn't be surprised if the United States government has not done that before. I would not fucking be surprised. Why not? You can control the narrative. You can control where it's going. You can control who's getting it, who's watching it, who's putting it in security, where it's going. It makes perfect sense that the United States would be profiting off of this seized drugs from Venezuela in those boats. Peace out. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share.